Boom, and we are live with another
go.
episode of the Brown Water Banter Podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Gates.
That's right. We got a great episode lined up for you. In the studio, we have Johnny Marquez from the Mississippi Wildlife Foundation. We're going to be talking about
Federation.
What did I say? Foundation?
Yeah.
Okay, Mississippi Wildlife
Federation.
There we go. We got it right now. We're going to be talking about all the things that they do, man. It's a pretty cool topic. I was reading about it a little bit on your website today. Excited to jump into it. But before we do that, I want to thank the people that keep the lights on over here at the Brownwater Studio. Right out of the gate, 2023 is the year to keep your mouth clean. Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles, man. If you're looking for a great local dentist, they are located on Washington Avenue in Ocean Springs. They are on the socials there at Southern Magnolia Smiles on Facebook and Instagram. And when you're ready to book that appointment, tell them that you heard about him here on the podcast and give them a call at 228-215-1202. Moving right along, our good buddy Tyler over at Taylor & Cox Law Firm. They have been practicing law in Pascagoula for 30 years, man. They come highly recommended from everybody that we've spoke to. And now that we've got to know Tyler, we recommend him ourselves. So,
that's right. We got these hats on.
Yeah, if you find yourself in the need for some legal representation, they specialize in criminal law, family law, and civil litigation defense. So give them a shout at 228-696-0111 and tell them that you heard about him here. He is also, Taylor & Cox Law Firm is also the sponsor for the Brownwater Banter app. If you don't have it on your phone, go download it now. It's free, App Store and Google Play. It's got all your outdoor needs covered. Tails and scales, bag limits, tides, weather, all right there in one app, man. And Taylor & Cox Law Firm is a sponsor for that, so we appreciate it. Moving along, Forever Young Men and Women's Health, this is our buddy Kendrick. If you find yourself lethargic, you can't get off the couch, you can't get motivated to get back in the gym or really even just move around, man, you feel tired, go over to Forever Young Men and Women's Health and let Kendrick run some labs on you, man, and figure out maybe you need some hormone replacement. Maybe it's dietary, maybe it's vitamins, anything that he can fix, man, he can do it for you. And if it is hormone replacement, you can do it under the supervision of a medical professional. He's located in Gulfport, and he treats men and women. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can give him a call at 228-363-6623 or look him up on Facebook and tell him that Brownwater sent you. Next up, I think this is our guest for Thursday's show. Is that correct, Joey?
O'Brien?
Yeah, we have Robbie O'Brien, who is running for Jackson County Sheriff. And I got the thing pulled up here. His key points, his campaign promise is that he's going to address recruiting and retention within the department. He wants to increase school and church safety, and he wants to promote proactive policing efforts, build community relationships through transparency, and address the increase in crime and drug overdoses in the county. So remember, August the 8th is coming up. Well, that's only 7 days away as we record this. So get out and vote. If you want to know more about Robbie O'Brien, you can text him at 228-218-1099 or go to www.o'brientforsheriff.com. And we also have one of his opponents here, the current sheriff in Jackson County. This is John Ledbetter. He's also a sponsor for the month, and he's running on experience. He said for the past 22 years, he's dedicated his life to protecting the citizens of Jackson County. He thinks our community deserves a leader with a track record of integrity and accountability. He supports community leaders, elected officials, and law enforcement, and he's going to work hard to earn your vote again this coming up August the 8th. So when you see his name on the ballot there, you can also go check out our previous episode that we did with him. It was a great conversation. So if you want to get to know him a little bit better, you can do that. And we appreciate his support for the show. Last that just jumped on here with us is Randy Bosarge. He was last episode.
Yep.
I do believe District 5 supervisor in Jackson County. He's also running for re-election. Randy's got a ton of experience. He's been the board president, Jackson County's 2018 and 2022. He talked at length about all the economic development that's coming through for Jackson County, both past and future. So go check that episode out as well. His name will be on the ballot August the 8th. So make sure you get out there and vote. And Randy, we appreciate you supporting the show. So thanks a lot.
And finally, we got back to fishing.
Yes, Joey's been itching
in these politics, man.
We
got
finally,
we got one more
on Thursday. So
one more, yeah. So Johnny, thanks for hanging out with us, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you're doing these days.
All right. Well, I grew up on the coast. Was here, been here my whole life. Other than I did a 12-year stint up in D.C. and recovering attorney. Moved
Gotcha.
moved moved home. Practiced long distance for a little while. Moved home right before a storm, and then decided I would try something a little different and got into the conservation arena first as a volunteer, and then was the executive director for CCA for a number of years, and then moved over to the Mississippi Wildlife Federation, where I currently serve as their director of coastal policy and programs. So I work on state and federal fisheries issues and coastal conservation issues and sportsman's issues around the state. So, hunting as well as fishing, but, coastal issues are really where I have my focus.
Yeah. How long has this been around? Because is it a fairly new organization, or how is it?
No, they've been around for quite a long time. Just over 75 years.
Oh, really?
Oldest organizations in the state, and it's a unique organization. We're an affiliate organization, which means we're made up of other organizations. So we're kind of an organization that is comprised of others. We have affiliate members that are other nonprofits, which gives us a big reach. But one of the things that the organization always struggled with was they didn't have a coastal presence. It was based out of Jackson. That's how I came on board. They had tried to build a coastal presence, but it's hard to do that without actually having somebody on the coast.
Right.
And as we all know, I mean, once you go north I-10, it's all different.
All pine trees.
We're kind of in a little sketch area right here. We're
North 57.
Yeah, North 57. We have to go back and get our coast card back when we leave here.
That's right.
That's good stuff. So you jumped from CCA into here, coming from the coast. Was there a saltwater aspect of it, or is that what you're bringing to Jackson?
I think I'm bringing that. They did not have so much of a fisheries focus. It was they did have a habitat focus. We had some programs down here that had been funded, particularly after the spill.
Right.
We had a habitat stewards program that was stood up here to help train volunteers with conservation, but bringing that sportsman's advocacy piece of it was a big part of what I helped to do.
Yeah.
It also came at a time after the spill when we really realized that there was going to be a big need. We're going to have this money flowing in, and we were going to need coordination among some different NGOs to participate in that process and how that money was spent. Make sure it was spent wisely. That we got a pretty long runway. It's not as long as people think to spend that money, but you want to make sure that we have projects that are going to change the landscape and not be sort of a bunch of what we like to call random acts of conservation.
Right.
A little something here and a little something there, but nothing that's really coordinated and building on itself. So that was part of the reason for the position as well.
I got you.
How do you feel that breakdown went? I know it's been a point of contention in politics going back to that for a little bit since the money was awarded, right? Everybody's trying to get their hand in that cookie jar, right?
I think it's been a pretty good process. It's hard because the general public, it's divided up into all these buckets, and the guy on the street, he couldn't care less what bucket of money is something gets paid for out of. He just wants to know that the resources being protected, projects are happening, and it's not just the BP funding. We've got Go Mesa funding, we have Thailand's funding, we have this new giant infrastructure bill that's coming down. It has restoration dollars in it, so trying to figure out how to have a coordinated plan for that and to make it transparent. That continues. Although I think the work's going on, we continue to advocate within the state and the legislature, DEQ, DMR, for more transparency in that process. And honestly, to talk about the projects and the work that they're doing, because they're doing good work, and sometimes it's hard to get people to, give themselves an attaboy and pat themselves on the back and tell the story about what they're doing.
We talked to we've been trying to get DMR to come on, but there's some hoops you got to jump over to get them to be able to speak on camera. But I said the same thing to some of our elected officials. It's like, y'all do good work up there sometimes, but the messaging back to the community, to the citizen, is usually like non-existent. They only ever hear the bad stuff on the news.
That's right. That's a tough thing. Now, I'll give DMR an attaboy. For those of you who've not been on their site, you should go on there and subscribe. They have brought back a newsletter that they're doing, and I think Rick Burris was central behind doing that. And it's a great, like a flip magazine. It's got detailed articles.
Right.
They'll push out an article here or there, but it comes out I think it comes out once a month, but it's very nicely done, and it'll have focus on some different things that they're working on, and so they're ramping that back up. I think Rick's kind of made that his personal crusade.
Little
It's
baby,
yeah. It's
well, they need to come on and talk to us about it because we didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Nah, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
So,
well, it's how you get it out. I don't know what they're doing to get it out there. And sometimes it just maybe today. We'll put a link. We'll get a link on after this.
You said it's on their website. I can see if I can find it right now while we're talking. Keep going though.
You said you're the southern. Is there how many directors are there? Are you the main one, or is there one up north, or how does that work?
We have a director for the organization,
okay,
and then a chief executive officer, and then I handle policy work. We still there's there's a lot of intersection there. That's always been the challenge with our organization. Honestly, I tell them it's not just fishermen down here and hunters up there. In October, everybody starts packing up their stuff and getting out to camo and heading north.
Right.
And when turkey season's over, they're back on the water. They're sportsmen. They're not just. It's not everybody, but it's not just hunting. They're not just fishing. So, trying to blend those cultures, and you need all those guys at the table and to understand the issues, because you can't get anything done with just the coast vote,
right,
or just the northern vote. So,
just had a big week, right? Y'all just had y'all's big. I guess you call it extravaganza.
We did.
So walk us through that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've held a wildlife show called the Wildlife Extravaganza, Mississippi Wildlife Extravaganza, for going on 35 years now in Jackson. It's been a fantastic show. It's a real family friendly show. Hunting and fishing. This was a particularly fun one. Lot of kids activities. We had some unique stuff I hadn't seen. We had some coon dogs there. Did coon dog races, swimming across the pond and chasing the tree in a simulated coon. But great representation from around the South. It's been a real nice show for us for many years.
Yeah, I watched some of this stuff earlier. Had some big names like all those gobbler, turkey callers, game callers. What's the gentleman in the wheelchair? That dude is legit.
Caller.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, he's awesome. And then you had some celebrities, little YouTube like Bubba Buck and a couple of other ones that are bigger up there that showed up. It was a pretty good meeting.
Right. Yeah, we had some good celebrities there. We had the National Wild Turkey the Calling Championship there, which lasted most of the day. We have big buck contests. So we had 100 big bucks that come in. They can bring their buck in. They get it scored. They give prizes for it. So that's nice to see. Some pretty incredible deer have been harvested in Mississippi from across the state during the last year. So it was a good 3 days.
Yeah, I was looking at your website earlier today too, and the thing I found the coolest is that y'all are a citizen group. It's not, like you said, NGO, non-government affiliated, right? This is all voluntary, right? Would you say everybody that participates is voluntary basis?
Well, we have like any NGO, we have a small staff. We don't have a very big staff, and then we have a volunteer board and then outreach through members and supporters and our other affiliates to try to bring voice to the table.
Right. What are some of the issues that are like, top priority for y'all that y'all are looking at, especially related to the coast?
Well, for the coast, it would be, a lot of it is coastal restoration work. So it could be anything from, for example, the last DMR meeting, they announced a coastal restoration project at Cat Island. I don't know if you saw that. They're going to restore some 660 acres of Cat Island.
Okay.
But it's only 30% design. And, they're permitting it at 30% design. Well, there's a lot of concerns with that. That's where we're coming into the table to make sure they're, funding adequate dune fencing, vegetation planning early on, not just bringing sediment in, because the last thing any of us want is to extend Goose Point and then have it all blow over in and silt in Smuggler's Cove and
there goes the trout bite.
kill the grass beds out there off of Good Scotch Point.
Right.
So that's where I think bringing a sportsman's voice and making sure sportsmen are aware of those kind of issues are important. Oysters have been a continuing big issue here on the coast.
Yeah,
we've got a big change in that this year, where we've had a bill passed that's going to privatize 80% of the oyster reefs that are out there and bring some private money in. I don't think that's a bad thing. The state is not necessarily nimble enough to manage all our oyster reefs. And so I think that can be a good thing. And it frees up the state to deploy resources for oyster restoration in other ways. So, I think we could agree the measure of oyster success is not necessarily how many sacks come across the rail for sale. We all fish, and
Absolutely.
oysters are important to
Yeah.
the whole ecosystem and for fishing reefs and cleaning the water, everything they do.
Cleaning the water is the one that always worries me the most, because what we used to have compared to what we have now, it's like, who's picking up the slack in the circle of life there?
The ecosystem,
to filter that water,
Right.
And I don't know, but when you say privatize the reefs, are you talking about the stuff that's back there behind Deer Island now, or something else entirely?
No, so this is there was a bill that was passed in the last legislative session that authorizes, in fact, requires DMR to make 80% of the available oyster bottoms that are current, reefs that available for lease to private entities.
Okay.
The way we operate, have operated our oyster reefs in the past, it's almost, I hate to be flip about it, but it's kind of like a kid's lemonade stand. The state goes out and seeds the oysters, and we put all this money into putting mulch on the reefs and replacing substrate, and then the oystermen go out and harvest it, and and then sell the oysters.
Right.
So, it's the analogy. It's easy to make money in a lemonade stand when your parents buy all the supplies and everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I got you.
But the reality is the state has one oyster boat, really, so when you have a storm like Katrina that comes in, or another big storm that silts over the reefs, we don't have the ability to get out there and be dredging the reefs and turning them over and making sure that silts off of there so that they're going to survive, or, monitoring the reefs. So I think that having some private, money come in with guys who are doing that every day, do it for a living, got skin in the game, could be a good thing. And let us, the state, focus on other ways to restore oysters.
That reminds me of that story where they were trying to protect, I think, lions, like in Africa. And one of the ways that worked the most was allow people to pay to hunt them. And it's like counterintuitive, but it's like, if it's a product that's worth money, then the local people that have money invested in it, they won't go out and poach them.
Right.
They'll only sell them to the people that are coming to kill them.
Right.
Whether you agree with that or not, it helps protect the lions.
Yeah.
Could be the same thing with the oysters, I guess, maybe kind of like what you're talking about.
Well, I think having the private money in there to do that will benefit everybody. And like I said, I think it frees up some resources. I think, to your point, what you're talking about, I don't think a lot of people realize, a lot of sportsmen, they might not think of themselves as a conservationist, but, the vast amount of conservation funding in the United States comes from two bills that provide for excise taxes on hunting gear and on fishing gear, and that then come down back to state agencies and are deployed and redeployed for conservation. So, if you're going to academy, or you're going to see the swamp and you're buying some fishing tackle or some hunting gear, you're a conservationist, whether you like it or not.
You're paying for it.
So when my wife got AFCO fishing shorts for the boys to go to school with, conservation right there.
There it is, right
there.
Right. So it's but it's important for them to recognize that, when people want to, in this day and age, it's hard because as you're losing, it's a decline. We're on a decline. You're losing hunters and fishermen as a pastime. Kids are busy in travel sports and video games and everything else.
Playing on the phone. Yeah.
I just shared an article with y'all the other day. Some friends of ours, the Department of Education is penalizing schools that are still having outdoor hunting classes and archery classes because it's deemed unsafe or something.
Right. Yeah.
It blows my mind.
I just came across that myself. I had not been paying attention to that, but
I thought it was a joke.
Well, I think it's a misinterpretation of that law, and I think what they intended to do with the law was they didn't want to have federal funding going to train resource officers in school and providing guns, and so now the Department of Education they're taking the interpretation that means, no hunting programs or anything like that at school,
crazy.
Which is just a shame because so many kids we know. I mean, I'm fortunate. I grew up. I got it straight down the bloodline.
Right.
My grandfather loved to fish. He put it in my dad. My
Right.
dad put it in me. I put it in my kids, but there's a lot of kids out there that they don't have whether it's their father or an uncle or a neighbor or somebody that's going to expose them. And so, removing those opportunities is, it's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, in shop class, we were 6th, 7th grade. we took it in shop class, and we'd go do hunting safety courses. They still offer that at the high school, but now they have like a simulator. It's like an arcade game. We would get on a bus at St. Martin, drive to the landfill. The boys would shoot 12-gauge shotguns. The girls would shoot 20-gauge. I mean, you could shoot anyone you want, but most of the time the girls would shoot 20 gauges. Load the guns back up on the bus and go back to school. Like, if you try to do that now,
cultures change, societies change, and it's not for the better. To me, shielding people from guns just makes you more unsafe,
right.
and hunting connects you to the outdoors.
Yeah,
I mean, what better way than to be out in it?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, you can't lose that connection, and there's so much more that goes, into that. I can remember having a debate with somebody quite a while. We were talking about ecotourism on the coast and how to promote that, so we were at these casinos that, for example, they'll promote a 3-day golf package down here, but you could promote the same kind of thing for ecotourism. If you look across the coast from the Audubon, the Prac Center over in Pascagoula all the way to Stennis and the aquarium and the marine mammals, charter fishing, sailing, kayaking. I mean, there's so much to do, and getting out in the back, and you need to promote that. You need to get people out there, and so that they understand and have that connection with the land and with the water.
Yeah, and get to know the Gulf Coast, other than just being in the casino. If you want to get out and explore and learn what the Mississippi Gulf Coast is about, those are the ways to do it.
Yeah.
What other issues other than the ones you've mentioned? I know that's probably a big topic. I think even Delbert Husband talked about that when he was on about the state purchasing Cat Island.
Yeah,
didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
they're purchasing some parts of it,
correct,
which is good because it's been privately owned, and so that's kept some restoration from happening. Because you can't enhance private property.
Right.
So once that land gets into public, into the public domain, then that opens it up. Because if you've been out there,
how did we? I still don't understand how the state did not own Cat Island. It was purchased, they never owned it, or
he
they
explained it to us on there.
I know
the family bought it, and they've had it for a really long time, and they wanted to get rid of it. $13 million, I think, is what he said the state paid for it.
So all of the islands along here were they were privately owned. And then when they started putting the islands into the National Seashore Program, and they started working sort of east to west, and before they got down to Cat Island, I think they had kind of a limited budget to do it. And the family that owned the island had platted a subdivision on there. And, a lot of that made that much more difficult. There's camps out there, and
there's a few
dredged the canal, and so that's why that remained in private hands. But then over time, they started to sell some pieces, and then a large chunk got sold after the spill. First to BP, and I think BP turned around and sold it to the Corps, and maybe now it's with Fish and Wildlife Service. And so there's some negotiations about swapping some pieces around there to protect, because so that restoration work that they're going to do out there now, that project is for the old Goose Point, which is withered away to practically nothing. And but if you go down to the west end, it's
beautiful.
It's retreating as well. So.
It's the north side that we were in. Where did they dump the sand that they just dumped out there? That was the north side?
So that was they did a project on the east side.
Yeah, we were the east side.
And that ended up being a fantastic bird project, and it did great, but that was all along the east end. And then on the southeast end, which was Old Goose Point, that was more difficult to do because I think that was in Park Service hands. I'm not going to remember who.
Right.
There's a few different ownership pieces there, but once the state finished up buying Deer Island, then they turned their focus to trying to buy up, some of the other pieces of Cat Island, and the family was agreeable to that, and they kind of held that core piece in there where the camps are.
Yeah.
But that'll be a good thing because it'll allow for some restoration on the island. At that project, I think they're going to put 13 million cubic yards of dredge material out there on the end at Goose Point. So it'll help.
I guess the same project that did Ship Island when they connected Camille Cut. Same thing, right?
Right. This won't be as difficult because they're going to take sand from the Barrow area. So where they dredge the Ship Island channel, they pump that out to the east. To the west of the channel. Yeah. And so they'll be able to borrow sand from there, unlike Ship Island, where they were having to go find these
in Orange Beach, wasn't it, or something like
riverine beds and particular, grain size and everything. This one doesn't have the same sort of constraints on it. So it'll be a little easier to do.
Yeah. What about further up, like Jackson and stuff like that? What are the stuff they looking at that way?
Well, in the northern part of the state, we have had more issues on the hunting side. Chronic wasting disease,
Right.
problem around the state. How do we get handled on that? Last year, a big issue within the state was the sale of deer. There's a group that wants to be able to sell deer. We've always been an advocate for the sort of the North America model with the college sort of free chase, not owning wildlife. And I guess people might question that. You have a deer lease and put a corn feeder out there, but it's a lot different than buying and selling them.
Right.
They just passed some regulations this year for turkeys. We've been one of the last states that didn't have a turkey tag program. Trying to keep up with what our turkey population is and how we can bring them back. If you don't have the data, it's like we all know about snapper now, and we've got this great data because we're collecting it now.
Right.
That's one of the silver linings. The whipsaws back and forth, north and south part of the state, but that came out of the oil spill was. The DMR had a lot of mandates to do stock assessments and other things that, we just didn't have the funding to do. It wasn't getting done. I think there was a real realization that it's hard to know you don't know what you lost if you weren't keeping up with it. If you didn't have baseline data to begin with. And that's provided, a lot of money although the general public doesn't see it all the time, but that's that necessary science for them to be doing stock assessments and getting a better handle on, particularly on our inshore fisheries.
Yeah. Kind of like the Tails and Scales app.
Well, the Tails and Scales app, if you've been out to the islands, and they've done a bunch of great jobs getting different grants. I don't know if you've noticed the red teardrop buoys out around the islands between Ship and Horn. So, there's a number of grants that they've gotten. That's an acoustic tagging program. Right. And they were all of these, they're different grants, but they've all kind of come together. So where they're doing sturgeon and flounder and redfish. Well, any one of those didn't have enough money to put a whole array of buoys across. But by the time you put them all together, any one of those buoys can pick up any one of those fish, and they pretty much have the whole Mississippi Sound roped off. If something's leaving the Mississippi Sound, one of those fish with acoustic tag, I think they're doing triple tail as well.
Yeah.
Then they're getting that data. So, that's exciting science.
Absolutely.
Not for everybody. They're exciting science. So.
That's cool. Though.
It really is, though.
I mean, when Mississippi State started doing those tarpon taggings, like I didn't realize tarpon were running. They would run Horn Island, inside Ship Island, run the Chandelier, and come back. But they showed it on their map, and it was interesting to me. I dove into the whole article and read everything.
It's Shark Week right now, and I've been watching them tag great whites off the coast of South Africa. I'm into that. Yep. It's fun to watch. The more you know, the more you can help protect them, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, what's the balance there, though? As we gain all this data and figure out more and more about them, is it even possible to protect the species and keep your recreational guys? I'm not even going to get into like the commercial side of it, but I guess that is part of it. How do you keep everybody happy?
I don't know that you can keep everybody happy because everybody wants to remember the good old days.
Right.
And it's just, you can't hold on to that. The reality is,
it won't be here.
I can't have two kids and they both have two kids. Let's just say it's two. I mean, I have three kids and they each have three kids. It's a Christmas tree out like that, and everybody live by the same, the resource is the resource.
Right. And,
I'm, a recreational guy at heart, but you see it, out there. I was thinking about it on the way over, when my parents grew up in New Orleans, and my dad, they come over to the Pascal Jam for the summer. And so he grew up fishing down that end and fishing first key, second key, fishing trout and redfish. And we would go out when I was little, pre-Loran or any of that, fishing a skiff. When we go fish first key, and you would triangulate, you'd line up the water tower and something else, and then over here you'd line up something and here, and then you start digging around, hitting around on the bottom to see if you were on oysters.
Yeah.
That not now.
You come down. If you didn't grow up in a fishing family, you can buy a 21-foot boats, got 100 gallons of fuel for $600 or $1,000. You can have a piece of electronics on there that's as nice as any offshore supply vessel. May not have a 24-inch screen, but it can have side scan sonar and put you, on the money. You watch a couple of YouTube videos and, you're seeing guys up
regular
in
fishermen.
You're seeing guys up in the middle of the marsh in places that I didn't dream of going, when I was, and I felt like we were kind of a salty family, but I was like, I'm kind of skirting around the edges.
We talked about it on the show.
I saw a shirt the other day. It said "Grandpa, the original GPS."
Yeah.
That's what we used to go back to. You know what I'm saying? Before they knew where the fish were because they fished it. You know what I'm saying? It's just not like we're gonna go try this new spot. No, we know where they're at. We're gonna go here.
Yeah, I did you say earlier that the outdoorsman, like hunter and fisher, is going down? Like I guess track through licensing in the state. Is that right? It doesn't seem like that. Like anecdotally,
well,
right?
I mean, I guess you could buy a boat without buying a fishing license.
Well, you can't technically fish. I mean,
correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're right. You wouldn't think that.
It doesn't feel like that.
Like nobody works. They all have boats and nobody works. I mean, you go, springtime hits and you get on the. I fish more the west end, but you get out to Cat Island and you're like, what the hell? It's Tuesday. You can walk from one end to the other on the back from boat to boat. It's
crazy,
and they keep on coming. So the pressure feels there, but it's also. That's a prop to me. That's a function of decreasing opportunity. So it's like whack-a-mole. They're like, so snapper. We used to go out and go fishing. Now it's like, okay, it's snapper season, but nothing else is open.
Right.
Okay, snapper season's closed. Now it's AJ season.
Amberjack,
and like this year, it's going to be 25 days.
All
those guys don't quit fishing. They just switch. And so it's like. For snapper, they might go like, okay, well, we're just going to go trout fish early, and then when it heats up a little, we'll go out and grab a couple of snapper, and then we're going to come back and drink on the island.
Right.
Great day. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But it shifted a lot of pressure inshore. I think that may not have been there before.
Yeah.
Along with I think another big problem is the whole rigs, idle iron policy that rigs have disappeared and the amount of habitat and opportunity that we have out there for places people to go and fish, particularly for us here in Mississippi with kind of the muddy bottom we have.
Right.
We need that hard substrate. So the DMR has done a good job. I don't know if y'all saw they're trying to expand the artificial reef zone by I think 16,000 acres maybe. It's a sizable amount. And they've got a lot of material to put out there, and that'll be good. It'll help people spread out some, but not quite enough.
Yeah. And it takes a little while for those things. It takes 2 or 3 years for them to get set, mature, get fish stuff, and you can't just dump it and start fishing on it.
We I think we talked about it before we went live though. You just were, what was it, last week?
With the fishing banks,
Mississippi Gulf fishing banks, and went and
sunk. They sunk a pokey boat Thursday, and they sunk one Friday, and we were on the one that sunk Friday, and we got the video coming up with the drone. It's cool stuff, but of course, even with that, there comes the fight of, we dumped it on FH13, but the state guys can't fish it. You see what I'm saying? Because it's past the 9-mile mark, so it's in
charter
federal,
guys.
It's state state federal, state charter guys. Yes.
Right.
And it's weird, you know what I'm saying? It goes to the point about making people happy.
I guess it's like an ecotourism too thing, right? Because it's, if you want to bring that side of it in, but they can't go fish the good reefs, then there's that dilemma, right?
Well, I have a little different view of it. I mean, there never was a state charter for hire reef fishery. Our boundary was always 3 miles. It wasn't until we got into the big fight about snapper and they pushed the boundary to 9 miles that all of a sudden, okay, well, there's some snapper between 3 and 9 miles off the islands. Then we're not really inside of 3.
Right.
Yeah. And all of a sudden it, spawned this, state charter for hire fishery that was not a federally licensed fishery.
Yeah.
So, I get it, but that's not their bread and butter. And anybody who's a state licensed guy, I mean, that adds to what he's getting to do. But that's not what he's doing year round. We really took it in the shorts this year with a decrease in our quota. Yeah. So, our snapper season was only
2 months.
A month.
Yeah. No,
not
a month
even,
and a half.
Not even.
Yeah.
It was Memorial Day to maybe 6 weeks, Memorial Day till just after the 4th. So, nobody's making their living off of that particular fishery.
Gotcha. The snapper, you mean?
It's just land yap, because they're inshore guys. Most of them.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, but an inshore boat can do a lot of things on a good day. Pick your day and go. But that's not the bulk of their, what they're doing.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
And the fishing banks they're like the Marines. They just want to blow stuff up. The fishing banks, they just want to sink stuff. They don't care where it's at. You know what I'm saying? The more stuff on the bottom, the better.
Well, they got to keep it within the regulation.
The FH, yeah. So if they're going to go 9 miles or 10 miles, they're sinking it.
Gotcha. When it's a dilemma, they have some sites that are further out, and you'd like to get more material out there because it's a different fishery. So, out on FH7, for example, you'll get some amberjack and stuff out there, but your cost to haul something to FH7 goes up a lot. So, I could do more material and reef building and closer where more people are fishing, or we can, try to find some funding to get it out there further. But there's certainly a trade-off.
Yeah. That was a long ride on that barge. I think it took them like 8 hours to get out to FH13. So it was FH7 would be a good little ride.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I do a lot on I work a lot on the federal side too. So I'm on a couple of advisory panels for the Gulf Council. So I'm their reef fish panel and advisory panel and their data panel. Participated in the recent stock assessment that's ongoing right now for snapper. It's called CDAR 74. Which is, you probably heard the old saying, there's two things you don't want to see made, sausage and legislation. It should say 3, because a federal stock assessment of a fishery is
not fun science. Not as much fun.
Well, it makes my head hurt. I'm not we're lucky we have some really some talented, smart people here within our state. So like Trevor Moncrief, who does that for DMR, does a great job pointing out the problems with the federal stock assessment and how they're evaluating what we're catching and what's out there, particularly from the state of Mississippi, from a small state. There's a lot of particular issues
that the data's not clean. Is that?
Yeah. So, you got a small state like Mississippi, and the way they evaluate the harvest effort, they do it in waves. So it'll be a couple of months, like here's a wave, and they'll take they'll do some dockside surveys and some other things, and then they'll take that data and extrapolate from that. Here's how many fishermen what we think the harvest was. Well, we'll have some times where maybe our season ran into September, and September's the beginning of a new wave. And so you'll have a big Labor Day weekend, and you got 2 samples, which is not anything. And then they extrapolate from that, and there's no fishing going on after that. And they say, well, Mississippi, you caught 400,000 pounds during September and October. Well, our season wasn't even open. Yeah. It was impossible, and it's like beating your head on a brick wall. But they've done a real good job of, really going through the details of that and try to point it out on the federal side. And, hopefully it takes time. That kind of stuff moves at a glacial pace. But they've at least put the kind of data that we need out there. Maybe when we get this next stock assessment, we'll get some of those snapper back.
Yeah. As a local fisherman, what can we do? What do you suggest? Do we join something? Do we come together? Do we have a bigger voice? How does that work?
Well, staying on top of it, be involved in, organizations that, can help you stay on top of it. Because it's hard. We're all inundated with a ton of stuff every day, not just, fishing, but kids and life. And, so, I think being a member of an organization is a good thing. It's a struggle for organizations that do that when you don't have a fight out there, when things are, they're relatively good. There's not a particular big issue that everybody's trying to rally behind. You want people to continue to stay engaged so that they're there when, you do need to call on. There is something going on. And, recreational fishermen are always tough because, unlike commercial fishermen, they're not making a living from it. So they can pay attention to it sometimes not. Sometimes it's easier to complain about something that's happening to you after it happens rather than, being on the front end, especially when this stuff just takes forever sometimes to get, everybody gets burnt out, you're trying to.
Well, even understanding the machine that makes these decisions and then how they're implemented. I'm learning a ton of that just through this podcast. I didn't realize that. I didn't know how many agencies were involved. I didn't realize that it's not just the DMR, that there's more to it than that. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork, a lot of hoops you got to jump to even get it started.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's staying engaged is a good thing. Like on the federal side, for example, when I was getting interested in doing some of that, they had a course called MREP, MREP, that it was designed for people like that. You're a recreational fisherman, a charter for hire guide, somebody you want to get yourself involved, and you could apply to this, and they paid for it. You did 2 different sessions down in 3-day sessions in Florida, and one of the 3-day sessions, you learned all about the science and what goes into it. And the other one, you learned kind of all about the policy and how that happens and bringing the science into play. So, trying to find those kind of opportunities where you can engage is, is important. Or like I said, being involved in an organization that can help you stay apprised of what's going on.
Yeah. Do y'all have a list of all your nonprofits on your website? Like if you wanted to join any of those, are they on there?
Yeah. They're listed under affiliates on the organization.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I'm looking at, like Joey just said, I'm looking at your website right now, and I'm seeing it says what we do. We've got just some of these bullet points, if we haven't touched on them yet, that you may want to elaborate on. Like it says certified wildlife habitat, adopt a stream, habitat stewards, hunters harvest, and Magnolia Records programs.
Okay, sure.
Any of those that we may need to talk about?
Sure. So our hunters harvest program, for example, that is is one where hunters can donate meat to a processor. So if they catch, they shoot a deer, harvest a deer, and maybe on their property they're trying to harvest a certain amount of does, but they don't necessarily want to eat all that. Right. They can donate that at a processor who's on the list, and that processor will do it. We pay, they give us a discounted rate, but we then pay for that to be processed and turn that into meals that go to the food bank. And so it's great. It's protein, great meals.
Yeah.
That they can do a lot with that. And so that's a great program that has grown over time. The Adopt a Stream program, that is something that we do. We have one of our staff, Deb Veeder, she does that all over the state, and really it's about teaching youth and teaching educators to help them, training them to train youth about protecting the land to protect the water, and sometimes that protecting the water resonates with people. You try to tell them to protect the land, they're like, but they get it when they start to see, what's happening on the land, whether it's nutrient runoff or
fertilizers,
trash,
pesticides,
whatever,
anything like that.
Trash, oil from your car, plastic, what happens up in Jackson ends up coming all the way down to Pearl and ends up where we are, Our Habitat Stewards program was something that we developed after the spill, that was to train volunteers to, they would do 24 hours of training and would agree to do 100 hours of volunteer service to help landowners like the DMR or the Land Trust for the Mississippi Coastal Plain, where they needed boots on the ground really, and to get out and observe. And then they help with stuff like removal of invasive species or doing wildlife counts. We're moving that program right now into the Boys and Girls Clubs across the coast. So 6 clubs in the Harrison and Hancock County and 4 in Jackson County, and just getting started to try to bring that to them as part of their programs, where we can train them and get them out into the field and put them in touch with wildlife. We're also hoping to do a fishing program. We're waiting to find out if we got the funding for that, but same kind of thing. I saw y'all went on the trip the other day on the Shaggy's program.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a great audience there, as we talked about earlier, that kids that may not get that opportunity, or even if they got it, they got a chance to go on the pier, but they'd never been out on a boat, may never have a chance to go out on a boat, So the hope is that we'll get them engaged, get them set up with some gear that's a little bit nicer that they can hold on to and use, and instill that love for the outdoors in them.
Yeah, that we love that. That's our favorite part of that is seeing. We take it for granted sometimes, that like you said, we were raised that way, and then you see kids that never been on a boat before, and they're just like this the whole time, and it's like, yeah, man,
and to go wade fishing, a lot of people,
it's like that.
A lot of people have never been to the islands,
right?
A lot of people that are born out here have never been to the islands, and then to have. It's the first time my daughter's been to Horn. I mean, she's been to Horn, Ship, and Deer, but it's the first time she's been to Cat. So she got to jump on Cat Island. Never seen it before. So it's eye opening for a lot of kids.
Are y'all able to go into schools? You mentioned Boys and Girls Club. Are you allowed to go into any of our local schools and presentations or like getting kids involved in your programs?
Sure. So we're working on that with Gulfport High. It's kind of trying to get started with them. The schools sometimes are a little bit tougher because it's so dependent on the teacher. So you get in there, you've got a teacher who's willing to sponsor. Maybe the teacher's that's not their subject matter, but they like the idea and they'll do it for a club. But then all of a sudden you lose that teacher, you kind of lose the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason we kind of made the shift to try to work with the Boys and Girls Clubs, because they're there. It's they're involved in those programs, especially as we move to year-round school. There's a need and we have these other breaks, so like in September, you got 2 weeks off, what are these kids going to do?
Right.
So it's providing some other unique opportunities to reach out to them during those other times, not necessarily just in the summer. So
Mark Havard here, he's been on the show before from Two Crackers.
Right.
He said he would love to help. So,
okay.
Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. I mean, like you said, shifting to 2 weeks off, like year-round school or whatever, having programs that could, instead of just sitting around the house, what I mean? That would be great.
Yeah. Or they're there, like for the Boys and Girls Clubs. I mean, they're going to the Boys and Girls Clubs and they're figuring out, what are we going to do with these kids?
Right.
We don't have a summer-long STEM program, or we don't have a, is it a sports program, or what can we do that would be, of value to them?
Mm-hmm.
And that provides a great opportunity and a nicer time of year to do it. It's
a little
tough.
Cooler.
Yeah.
God, no. If you try to do it right now, you'd be baked up, son.
Yeah. With that Shaggy's angler camp, you
got us.
Yeah, you had to bring your long sleeves on that one.
Yeah.
A little protection, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
Well, we did a camp, and we did it again this year. It's called Art and Ecology, and so we would have the kids in the morning. We would focus on science, and we might take them on a field trip to go see something, and we would really try to slow them down and look a little bit more at the macro stuff, and and then take their observations and journal about it, and then they would come back, and after lunch that would be art, because they would just be whooped from being out in that heat, and so it was a nice kind of blending of what they were doing. It's a good camp.
Yeah. Where do y'all usually run those camps out of? Y'all run them down here?
So that one was out of we did it in conjunction with Walter Anderson Museum.
Okay.
Before that, we partnered with the Land Trust and did it at their property at 12 Oaks, which was a great home base property right there in Ocean Springs. I don't know if you've been to it. It's
no, where's that at?
It is right behind the Hancock Bank on 90. And it's actually a combination. The Land Trust owns the building there. It's an old house. And it's got the most beautiful oaks surrounding it.
Oh, where they have the stage set up.
Yeah, you said Cruising the Coast.
Yeah, Cruising the Coast puts a stage up there.
And you park cars there too, I think.
I'm not sure about that. I was on the board there for a long time, but that may have happened after I rolled off.
Past 2 or 3 years. If we're talking about the same spot, it is right there behind Hancock.
Yeah, this is right behind Hancock Whitney. Well, you can't see any kind of open field. I'd be surprised, honestly, if they had it, because the Land Trust owns that little piece of property, and then actually the Department of Marine Resources, that's Coastal Preserves land that all surrounds it.
Okay.
So we might be talking about two different spots.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
But there's great, properties like that all around. Land Trust just finished a beautiful project behind, was it Keg and Barrel that's over there, right behind there, walking trail on a Blue Way.
Okay.
It's a
so that's right there on the river, right there on Fort Bayou.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, that's what makes it so wonderful. I mean, it's like right behind there.
Yeah.
Beautiful path and trail that goes through the woods, and they're hoping that they'll be able to complete that with a bridge. It'll connect to 12 Oaks. So great place to get outdoors, right over the marsh. Got some good platforms to look out over there. So again, sometimes everybody doesn't get to see that vantage point, because unless you live there, buildings all around.
Yeah. Well, you drive by it and not even know, like I do all the time, apparently. So
every day.
I've got the link to your Facebook page dropped in the comments below. If somebody's hearing about this for the first time, they want to get involved, they want to join, what's the best way to do that?
They can send us a message through Facebook. That seems to be a popular way to do that now. They can always go to the website and send a message through there. They can reach out to me directly, but if you're on social media, which is I know where this will be placed, then that's probably a great easy way to do it, is send us a message through there and we'll get back to them.
And you can join the actual federation that you're in. Is that correct?
You can. We have largely moved to more of a supporter organization rather than a membership organization like CCA is.
Right.
We don't have, or DU, we don't really have materials and stuff that we send out. So it's much more of a supporter base, but you can sign up for the email and all the communications. We have another thing called a Camo Coalition that you can sign up for that is, you don't get as much. That's really designed for people that are interested, don't want to get a whole lot of communication, but want to be available when the call goes out for, we need help on some kind of piece of legislation or regulation going on. We need grassroots to speak out.
Yeah.
So that's what that Camo Coalition is about. And it's not just hunting, although people think camo and they think hunting.
Right.
It's across the board on any kind of issues that may be of interest.
So kind of like the reserves, just in case.
Right.
Just in case we need you.
Yeah, but they don't want, everybody's so reluctant to give their information out because they don't want to get like,
Spam,
if I'm going to give you this, I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff that I don't have time for. So this is really, when you get something from the Camo Coalition, it's going to be because there's something going on. And,
right.
That's a handful of stuff that'll go out during the year.
And how do I get to that? Could you tell me again? Is that on your website?
Camo Coalition is, that's also on the website.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would love to be a part of that. That sounds.
Do y'all have any other big events coming up? You just got done with the extravaganza. So is there anything else that goes in between there, or?
That's the big event that we have up there. We are going to be having a clay shoot. We're going to be having a couple things up there, a clay shoot and a concert that are going on in the fall. Those are still kind of in the working stages. The next thing we have going on down here is going to be a fishing tournament. That should be a kids fishing tournament.
Cool.
It's out of the Harrison County fairgrounds, right there on next to the soccer fields, the
Sheriff's Pond.
Right.
Who was telling us about that? I can't remember. One of the ones that we had on invited us to go up there. They're just talking about it, but I can't remember who was talking about that. And that's just at the pond, right?
Right.
The Sheriff's Pond.
That's slated to be September 23rd. And we've had a great time partnering with them and with CCA on that, and a number of other organizations. So I can't tell you how many years I spent out there at that soccer field. And I had no idea that pond was even there till we put this event on. And so we helped them out with an event in the spring and partner with them. And then we do one, same group partner. We're the lead in the fall. They're the lead in the spring. But the Sheriff's Department's a great group to partner with. They got a whole cooking team, and that facility, kids can run wild. They got a little train that drives everybody down, and fishing and a bunch of good activities. Fly the choppers in and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Ooh, that sounds like we need something we need to get behind.
Yeah. I'd love to go out there and check that out, film.
Yeah, that'd be good stuff.
Yeah.
So we got the fishing, that's it, and then we run back around, or is that we got something else after the sheriff's tournament?
Not anything particular going on down here in the fall at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
And is the extravaganza the same time usually the same time every year?
Yes.
So it was.
We just missed it, right?
We just missed it. Yeah. Just missed it.
It's usually the last weekend in July.
Okay.
Is when it's been for you. It kind of bopped around a little bit. Like I said, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool saltwater, coast guy. So the last thing in the world for me was to be thinking about hunting the last week of July.
Yeah.
But everybody's starting to gear up. They're thinking about it, and so that's the weekend that we ended up settling on years and years ago. So we're going.
So it's kind of like ICAST for hunters. They bring products in and stuff like that, kind of like a boat show kind of deal.
Yeah, but it's hunting and fishing, and it was everything from, we have outfitters there. There's a lot more on the freshwater side, right, being where it is on the fishing side with crappie, bass fishing,
and catfish.
And then we had bow fishing guys up from Louisiana. We had a whole lot of hunting with turkey and deer, and Trappers Association. It's a good event. It's all.
We need to check that out.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, we'd love to have y'all come up next year.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
that'd be great. Well, man, we appreciate you stopping by and talking with
Absolutely.
us. Everybody needs to go check them out, right? Facebook, you said, is the most active, right? Where y'all are at the most,
right?
Yeah, so go give them a look there. It's I dropped it already in the comments. So if you're watching this on the live or the replay, just click the link and go check it out. So again, thanks for stopping by this evening. We appreciate it.
I enjoyed it.
It was a good conversation. Yeah. Thank y'all for watching on the live, man. Go check out the Brownwater Banter app. You can stay up to date with all of our stuff in there. All of our videos and our podcasts are uploaded in there. It's free, App Store and Google Play. And thanks to Tyler and Cox Law Firm for sponsoring that. So we got O'Brien coming up Thursday.
O'Brien will be Thursday.
So be on the lookout for that. And we got August 8th coming up. So it'll be your chance to go vote.
So we get back into fishing again.
Yeah.